So what we're going to do now is create and write the script that's going to allow us to select our number of players. This is a pretty simple script, so it won't take us too long. What we need to do is select that player select canvas, go to add component, and here we're just going to type player select, capital P and a capital S. I'm going to select new script and then click create and add. Now this is going to automatically open Visual Studio for us. We're actually going to ignore that for now. And we're going to go back to our Unity scene here. And we want to go to the Assets folder. And it's going to put Player Select in our base Assets folder. And we want to get it in that Scripts folder so that we can get credit for it with the Check Setup button. So let's drag that Player Select script over on the left to our created scripts folder. And if you don't see that, you can expand Resources and expand Scripts. And then you'll see it there. So drag it right there into created, and then let's follow it in there and double click on it to open it up. Let's go ahead and delete all of the stuff inside here because we're not going to be making use of any of that. We're going to say public game object, and then an array of game objects. So that's how we add those curly or square brackets to make it an array, which is essentially just going to be multiple game objects. And we're going to call it player prefabs. Next up, we're going to make a method, a public method called public void select players. And then in open and close parentheses, we're going to say int player count. And then add our curly brackets at the end there. We're going to add a for loop here that says for int, oops, not image effect transition, whatever that was, int I equals 0. So when I is equal to 0, while I is less than player count with a capital C and I plus plus. So what this says is it's a loop that is going to execute the code between these curly brackets as long as I is less than player count. But every time it finishes the code, it's going to increase I by 1. That's what plus plus means. It means increment or increase by 1. So while I is less than our player count, we're going to say game object new player equals instantiate, and then in angled brackets game object once again, and then open and close parentheses player prefabs, and then in square brackets here we say I. So what that's going to do is pick the it's going to pick the prefab at the index I in our player prefabs array. So every object in an array has an index, which means that is its location inside of the array, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. So now let's go ahead and click outside of our for loops curly brackets, but staying inside of our select player method. We're going to add some space by pressing enter, and we're going to say game manager dot instance. So this is going to call our game manager, and we're going to say assign players open and close parentheses semicolon, and that's going to make it so that after we spawn the number of players that we are spawning, it's going to assign the players to their appropriate values in our game manager. And then finally, the last thing we want to do is disable our player select menu. So we're going to say game object dot set active. We're going to set that equal to false. Once we've got that all typed up, let's go ahead and save the script again with Control or Command S, and then pressing that save button, or pressing the save button in the top left there. Go back to our Unity editor, select our player select object, and then go to player prefabs. So now we'll see that we have this player select object and this size value here. We have 4 player prefabs, so we're going to set that equal to 4. And now we have our 4 elements here. So when I was mentioning earlier about your index in an array, arrays are ordered lists. So that means that there is an order to what's happening or what is stored in this array. So there's element 0, 1, 2, or 3. Those numbers represent your index in the array. That is to say where you are located inside this array. So in this case, our order does matter. So we're going to go to our prefabs and characters folder, make sure we have player select selected, and then we're going to drag in our player prefabs into these 4 slots. Now the order here does matter, so make sure you do it the same way I do it. We're going to grab man 1 and put him in element 0, woman 1 and put her in element 1, man 2 goes to element 2, and then woman 2 goes to element 3. So there we go. Now we've got our player select script all the way set up. And in the next step, we're going to hook this up to our buttons.